So what if artificial intelligence wasn't just replacing your job, but impersonating you in order to get paid from it? That's exactly what's happening right on Spotify. Artists are waking up to find their profiles hijacked by AI-generated knockoffs. Now this sounds like it's out of sci-fi, but it's happening right now. Real musicians are finding fake tracks on their profiles, while AI-generated slop quietly floods Spotify's playlists. Meanwhile, at the same time, anonymous ghost artists are racking up millions of streams, all without a single live show or public profile. My name is Josh, I'm a full-time professional musician as well as cadet journalist here at Michael West Media, and this is the Soundcheck. Now let's set the stage, alright? Australian bassist Paul Bender of the Grammy-nominated band Hiatus Kaiyote got a rude shock while scrolling through his Spotify. A brand new track had appeared on his side projects page called The Sweet Enoughs. Now, the catch is that he never recorded it, he never wrote it, and his bandmates definitely never uploaded it. He had no idea where it came from.
Several months ago, I was checking my Spotify and lo and behold, we had released a new song. Or had we? This bizarre piece of music was something that I had never written, recorded, uploaded, or heard. So I was very confused. So I had to listen to it. And oh my fucking god.
So understandably alarmed, Bender and his manager began knocking on the doors at both their local label and Spotify to try and get some answers. While they were doing this, it happened again. 2 more tracks appeared under their artist profile, neither created by Bender or anyone in the band, and both of them were unmistakably AI generated. Bender later discovered that new AI tracks were being scheduled for release under his artist profile, ones he could see in his Spotify for Artists app, but could not stop.
Not long after that, another piece of music was uploaded to our profile.
It's kind of a shame, isn't it? Turn your popularity into a myth. Everyone under attack, no one left to complain.
Why? How? How is it possible for them to attach things to our profile without being logged into it?
So for mid-level artists like the Sweet Enoughs, this is a little bit more than just an annoyance. It's a straight-up case of impersonating an artist, using their name and likeness to redirect streams and incomes to someone else. The way that it's set up is that phony tracks carry different Spotify codes, right? So even though it's on their profile, every play and every dollar flows onto the scammer and not to the artists. The damage can compound, of course, right? So their own songs could lose playlist placements or algorithmic reach due to the poor quality of this AI fake. They can get copyright claimed for using their own music, and fans could even unfollow their account due to just the shittiness of their latest release. Meanwhile, Spotify's only response was to blame a mapping glitch, basically saying the system got the names mixed up. And guess what? Spotify didn't remove the track. They simply moved the track to another artist's profile under the same identical name and just wiped their hands and called it a day. Now you can read more about the specific story over at Michael West Media, which is what inspired me to do this video to begin with. It's written by Michael Sainsbury and he dives even deeper into Paul's story and this AI scam. You can check it out over at the website michaelwest.com.au. But back to the chaos. Now how was all this happening? We've all seen the rise of AI hustle culture, influencers promising fast cash and passive income if you just let the algorithm do all the work.
In this video, I'm going to show you how to earn at least $500 a day.
If you want to make money from AI-generated music, here's everything you need to know.
In this video, I'm going to show you how I made more than $3,000 by uploading AI-created music on Spotify and YouTube.
One of the easiest grifts, of course, is AI-generated music. The method is really simple. Use cheap or free software to pump out hundreds of tracks, then upload them to Spotify at a low cost through some distributor like DistroKid for like $23 a month for unlimited releases. The music doesn't have to be good, it just needs to exist. Scammers create fake artist profiles, AI-generated artwork, and compile playlists filled with this slop. And they use a combination of playlisting or cross-promotion to generate these streams. Each stream earns a fraction of a cent, right? But at scale, it adds up. And because the uploader technically owns the copyright to this AI music, they can monetize this both on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, wherever it is. Now, Spotify has no meaningful verification, which means there's no two-factor authentication like you do when you log into your bank or YouTube account. There's no real artist's approval process. You just type in a name, select the profile, and suddenly your scam is live. This is how this AI Slop song ended up on the Sweet Enough's page. It wasn't a glitch, it was the system working exactly as designed. And now that we've kind of glossed over this opening story, what if I told you that these scams are not a bug, but instead a feature of Spotify's model? So this is a bit of a rabbit hole that I went down while researching for this story, but the main part of this video is if you dig deeper into these stories, it gets more cooked. What starts as a scam on an indie artist Spotify profile unravels into a decade-long playbook of exploitation and consistent behavior from one of the biggest companies in the world. So to ask, why hasn't Spotify moved on these issues already, right? So they've done a couple of things, tinker around the edges, but basically it's quite simple. There's no incentive. Every stream, even that of AI-generated junk, adds to their bottom line. It's simply the profit motive. Fixing this problem would mean investing in human reviews, moderation, and a system to prevent its abuse, all which costs time and money. That slows down the content machine. And why would a company built on such a large scale tighten the gates, especially when the damage only mainly hits smaller artists so far? Spotify has embraced the AI hype train, integrating it into features like AI DJ and AI playlists to enhance the user's personalization. Having an open partnership with companies like 11 Labs for publishing AI audiobooks, and even buying AI companies like Soundcheck, which is the foundation of the voice technology used in their AI DJ tools. However, the platform currently lacks a mechanism for listeners to filter out AI-generated content. I mean, if you're a listener to daily playlists or what's new, there's a high chance that you've already listened to AI music. This absence of filtering capabilities means that users can't opt out of AI-generated music even if they wanted to. And look, this technology is getting better and better. At some point, it's going to be indistinguishable from determining AI music from a real human being, but that's not the point. You should still have a choice in these things. So here's the main part of this story, right? This is the insane part. Let's talk about ghosts artists. No, not ghost writers, ghost artists. So in the research for this, I came across a really good book called Mood Machine, which is a book by a journalist called Liz Pelly, which explains how Spotify uses algorithms and fake artists to make cheap, mood-based playlists while skirting around paying real humans for their work. So in chapter 4 of the book, Pelly exposes Spotify's practice of populating playlists with ghosts artists, which are anonymous, royalty-free tracks designed to minimize payouts to real musicians. Now, she spoke with former employees and numerous musicians, read a lot of emails, and what she discovered was an elaborate internal program called Perfect Fit Content, PFC, where Spotify employees were directly tasked with taking commissioned music and listing it on their curated playlists. So basically, Spotify collaborates with production companies to create low-cost music that fills genres like ambient, jazz, chill. You've probably seen these playlists on your front page before. These tracks, often attributed to fictitious names, they lack artists' biographies or public profiles, making them indistinguishable from genuine artists to the listeners. Now look, Spotify denies creating fake artists directly, but does not refute adding such contents to its playlists. Pelly argues that this strategy is flooding the platform with generic music and sidelighting authentic creators. Now, as streaming services increasingly favour algorithm-friendly content, the line between genuine artists and cost-saving filler continues to blur. Now, I've got to clarify, these commissions are currently made by cheap publishing outlets, which are real musicians. But they're cheaply paid with a one-off fee and they do not get royalty streaming rights. Spotify's been pulling a version of this trick for almost a decade, right? As early as 2016, Music Business Worldwide reported that Spotify was paying producers flat fees to create royalty-free tracks, mostly stuff like chill, ambient, piano, and lo-fi beats. And then they upload them under fake names, They get millions of streams, no public artist bios, and crucially, there's no royalties owed beyond that flat rate. Spotify then prioritizes these tracks on their feature playlists, which generate a lot of passive income, which goes back to the company. A year later in 2017, Vulture Mag backed up this claim, calling out Spotify for gaming the system by stacking its most popular playlists with ghost content to slash payouts. Now fast forward to now, and Liz Pelly's revelations. It's quite clear. These stories aren't one-off hiccups. It's a pattern built into the system. A long, deliberate history of replacing real musicians with royalty-free filler while selling the illusion of artistic discovery. And now, with the power of artificial intelligent generative tools, this process becomes exponentially easier. Okay, let's do a test, right? I've gone into Spotify to check the first playlist there and to see what kind of artists are filling up the feeds. The very first artist is someone called, I probably can't pronounce this, Nazcondiglo. Okay, cool. I check out their music and it's all piano-based pieces. Makes sense. Their discography only goes back to 2022, which is a bit strange for someone so popular, but oh look, I can't seem to find any of their social media accounts. And for an artist with over 1.4 million monthly listeners, that's a bit sus. Okay, let's try a new artist, right? The one directly underneath this one. Mi Jong Ya. Cool, 1.1 million monthly listeners. No social media presence, no artist page, there's no concerts, there's no live shows. No trace of this artist. Not even the name turns up on Instagram or Facebook. And look, I can keep going through these examples, but a lot of these artists end up in a black box where you can't find out the origin of them. Now, one of the major things I noticed about a lot of these artists is their discography only goes back a few years maximum. AI music exploded in late 2023 with apps like Udio and Suno, but that seems to coincide with a lot of these artists popping up. Where are the royalties going? Who owns them? Something else worth mentioning is a little bit more anecdotal, and I can't play you examples, but we're going to show it anyway. I've been a professional musician for over 12 years, and at this point I've got 2 degrees in music, including a master's. Something that you notice with a lot of AI tracks, especially early ones, is a lot of weird artifacting in the songs. What I mean by that, it's like a modern AI model being trained off old classical recordings. It's picking up the hiss and crackle of recording to tape or even wax and the features of old microphones. It has the elements of these old noisy recordings, but because it's an AI model, it also attempts the polish of more modern songs. Which means in the sonic composition of these easy listening tunes, you hear really out of place stuff, like replicated hisses and harmonics that, if you were recording a real instrument, isn't possible. Even if you were using like a digital plugin, a lot of these features and artifacts that you hear don't exist. This only happens in AI music. Now, perhaps I'll do another deep dive video on this, maybe exclusive for a Patreon. So if you want to fund investigative journalism like this, feel free to jump over to patreon.com/thewest report, and we'll keep you updated over there. So growth at all costs. One thing that is crucial to understand is that Spotify is not a music company. It's a tech company dressed up in playlists and good vibes. Since day one, it's been funded by venture capital and driven by what Silicon Valley would call blitz scaling. It's the idea that you burn through cash so fast that you get to dominate the market first, and you worry about profits later. Think of things like Airbnb and Uber. They absolutely dominate both markets that they're in, but now, as it turns out, they are even more expensive than the competitors they were promising to replace in the first place. And Spotify has done exactly that. It undercut competitors by offering incredibly cheap subscriptions, locked in millions of users, and rewired how we consume music. Streaming now accounts for 84% of recorded music revenues, with Spotify being the largest at 30% of the market share, all while bleeding money for over a decade. It wasn't until last year that Spotify turned its first annual profit, not from supporting musicians, not from revolutionizing music, but from cutting costs, raising subscription prices, and squeezing more out of its existing user base. The goal was never sustainability, it was market control, and once you've got a monopoly, well, why bother with competition? Spotify was sold to the public as a disruptor, a neutral platform built to empower listeners and level the playing field for artists. In reality, it's been structurally compromised from the start. Major labels like Universal now rank among its biggest shareholders. That's a glaring conflict of interest. If you own the means of streaming, of course your catalogue is going to flow first. But that's a whole separate video which we might do at a later date. Now, let's be clear. AI in itself isn't inherently bad. It's a tool, and like any tool, it can be used to build or exploit. For those without musical training, it lowers the barrier to entry, and you can generate a full album in minutes without even touching an instrument. Look, that's meant to be democratizing in theory, right? But the line is crossed when AI is used to impersonate someone else's work to cash in on their name, audience, or even their catalog. It's not creativity, that's just theft. So how do we fix it? The good news is it's not rocket science. Basic identity checks and upload verification would shut down a lot of these AI impersonators straight away. Even something as simple as two-factor authentication before uploading music, or even just a ban on AI-generated tracks would just solve the problem. Yet it's like trusting the fox to guard the henhouse. Why does Spotify even hold the keys? If the platforms won't act, then the pressure has to come from governments. Music bodies and copyright lawyers are already calling for governments to step in. We need updated laws that regulate AI training data, to protect artists from impersonation and enforce royalties for synthetic music. If your AI model is trained on the backs of industry professionals, they're probably owed a slice of that pie. There are more policy tools available, right? So quotas for human-made music and playlists, like radio already does, or an opt-out of AI music toggle for listeners. Or even bet something like an AI royalty fund, right? If a track is generated by a machine, part of its earnings go into a national pool that funds, music education or supports emerging artists. Seems fair, right? Considering the technology is built off real musicians. There's so much more to this story that didn't make a cut, so maybe we'll do something in part 2. But in the meantime, there is something that AI cannot replace, right? So that's getting out and going and seeing a live performance. Nothing can beat that. Ah, shit.